a senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you're doing well. My name is Brian. I'm here with my wife, Lindsay. And this is unusual Rantzerker because it's just going to be the two of us. What with, ICMI 2019 coming up, a lot of the other badgers are busy doing various organizational stuff. So this is my time and my wife's time. And it should be good, though. We have a good little article we're going to go through. And so, if you guys want to be a part of the action and the after show, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go for about an hour here looking at this GQ article, Men Hating Women, a look into the psychology of misogyny. It's not a new article. It came out in November of last year, but it was one that I've been meaning to get around to talking about. And as evidenced by the way the media has been talking about toxic masculinity and so on recently, I think it's going to... Essentially, this sort of thing is always going to be relevant. So we're going to go for about an hour on the live show, and then we're going to go into the after show to continue the conversation and basically continue the article because it is kind of long, and it just kind of goes on and on. So it's going to take a while to get through. If you guys want to be a part of the after show, you have to become a badger by going to feedthebadger.com and starting a monthly membership. You could call it that. It'll give you access to the Discord and bonus content as well as other little perks. Sometimes we let people that are in our Discord watch content that's pre-made before it goes up, be a part of the conversation around men's issues, around feminism, the culture war, whatever. And we're building a community, and we want you guys to be a part of the community. So that is another way to do it. Go to feedthebadger.com to become a badger, and we'll see you guys in the after show when the time comes. All right, so in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and look at this article. I will be taking super chats if you guys want to add anything to the conversation. And one little heads up, we placed an order a while ago for some booze, and it hasn't arrived yet. So my phone might ring while we're doing the show. If it does, my wife's going to go get the door and get the stuff. And I apologize. We were expecting that it would have been here already, but for some reason they're running late on the delivery. So, all right. So just giving you guys a heads up when that happens. So let's look at this article. Men Hating Women, a look into the psychology of misogyny. Misogyny, mothers, and the curse of masculinity. It's time to go deep into the badlands of male psychology. Deep into the badlands. This is by a guy named George Chesterton, by the way. That's his real name, I think. And I have his Twitter here. He describes himself as a writer of stuff and managing editor at GQ. Also contributed to The Guardian and The New Statesman. So that tells us a lot. He's also a medievalist. So, do you know what a medievalist is?
No idea.
A medievalist is a system of belief and practice inspired by the Middle Ages or by devotion to elements.
Sounds like misogyny.
Yeah, it's this guy. Basically, what he's telling us is that he miladies like nobody else. This is like maximum miladying going on. So I wonder what he's gonna tell us. This man that's writing for Gentleman Quarterly about masculinity. So we're gonna get into it. Okay.
I'm already biased against GQ. After they put out the look into the men's rights movement or whatever. After I think it was the first ICMI, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually after the one in Detroit. It was after the one in Detroit. Yeah. When they did that thing with the really badly photoshopped photos. Well, they basically put some weird filters on them.
They weren't badly photoshopped, but they made everybody look way worse.
Yeah, they were trying to make them look like ugly creeps.
Not worse, but more dangerous. They looked like they had more testosterone. It was like a testosterone filter.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember
Sage?
Sages?
Yeah. Hey, Sage. Love you, man. Where have you been? Okay, so Yeah, I feel that feel when it comes to GQ. This is like, the thing is that GQ may be a men's magazine, but is really still a woman's magazine. It's basically like a men's magazine if men's magazines were created by women. And I don't really know if men actually read them.
It confuses me.
It's just more people that don't understand masculinity talking about masculinity. It's fucking infuriating. All right. All men hate women, said Claudine. This was not a statement I could just let go. I mean, I am a man by most agreed definitions. As far as I know, I don't hate my wife. She had returned home in disgust after an act of road rage left her frazzled. Another incident of condescension and aggression at the hands of a young male driver. He wouldn't dare talk to a man that way, she explained.
But do you know that?
No, of course not. This is like the story he's going to use to lead into his argument, I think. All men, I said, double checking. Yes. If she were right, it would explain a lot.
Oh my god, what?
Do all men, even the most earnestly considerate and progressive, harbor misogyny in the darkest recesses of their beings? And if that's true, what can be done about it? I want to chime in right here. If anything, progressive and considerate men probably harbor the most contempt for women, honestly. I honestly think that. They think that women are inferior. Progressive men think women are inferior. That's why they need special treatment. Honestly. I honestly believe that. I'm tired of pussyfooting around it. It's what I see every day. People who treat women like other men, like peers, those are the guys that these guys call misogynists. But they're not. They're the only ones being honest with them.
This is like all based, like her conclusion is all based on what like is going on in her head.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't directly say like women are so stupid, I hate them. She had a road rage incident and she's saying that he wouldn't have spoken to her that way if she was a man. Like that's it? Okay.
It was basically an anecdote that he is like analyzing needlessly because she was being irrational in that situation. Like literally, she's the one being irrational.
Yeah, she's the one that's kind of going to the conclusion that all men.
Yeah.
More than.
I mean, if she had come home and said, I don't know, like all blacks hate white people or something like that because of some road rage incident she had with a black guy, this article wouldn't. She'd be getting annihilated on Twitter basically for having those kinds of ideas. Okay, so Mavashil gives us $2 Australian and says, how HBR animates talking mouths, manual software. You know what? I'd love to be able to do that where when we spoke, the characters spoke, but we don't have that technology at this time. I mean, I only have one face rig and I haven't used it in a long time, so.
Hannah's animations do that though, right?
Oh yeah, Hannah's animation does, but those are pre-recorded videos.
Maybe they're asking how that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a program that they have for that, but it's got to be for pre-recorded stuff. It might even be a pretty involved process. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, we don't have access to anything that lets us do it live. Otherwise, we would. I've actually been wanting that for some time. Even some kind of animation, like the characters breathing and blinking and like doing things like adjusting the glasses or clicking the stapler, something like that. But yeah, thanks for the donation, Mavashil, and the question. Okay, the idea that masculinity is now toxic suggests we've only just noticed. So he's actually running with that. He's going with that. He thinks, yeah, maybe it is right because now we're saying that masculinity is toxic. All right. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but let's see where he goes with this. Idea. Oh, what?
He is going with it. He just explained that.
Yeah. I just want to make sure. Well, he said if it were right, it would explain a lot.
Yeah. So now he's going into it.
So I think he's going into it, but maybe he's just presenting the side. He could possibly, go back and try to make a counter argument. That's what I'm wondering about, but. Yeah, if you guys could hit that like button, the more people that have the like button hit, the more of a chance we have of more people seeing it. This is also going live on Facebook as well as Twitch. If you guys, I don't know if Twitch has a like button, but I know Facebook does, so maybe give us a react over there. And yeah, that'd be great. Okay, So the idea that masculinity is now toxic suggests we've only just noticed. For millennia, rigidity and repetition has been ingrained into male and female identities. But behind these social structures may be something more primal, an unholy stew of psychology and the culture that springs from it, and the culture that springs from it has made men what they are. Toxic masculinity is a tautology. So all masculinity is toxic masculinity?
What is it, tautology?
I think that means it's like in total. Toxic masculinity is all of it.
Why don't you just say in total?
The saying of the same thing twice in different words, considered a fault of style. It's repetitive. So basically what he's saying is toxic masculinity is like a needless repetition. Masculinity is toxic, is what he's saying.
Oh.
So he's going with the whole, like, what was it? I think it was Gloria Steinem's husband that said the same thing in a paper that he wrote, who, by the way, is supposedly her husband, but has a different last name because cucks. In July, the Misogyny Hate Crime Evaluation Report, a project of 2 Nottingham universities with the cooperation of the police, recommended that incidents of misogyny be recorded as hate crimes under the law and, as importantly, in the public awareness. After 2 years of research, it found that over half the women who contributed had experienced threatening behavior. Almost half had been groped, a quarter had been followed home, and a quarter had been sexually assaulted. So, we're talking, okay, so every woman, after they made misogyny a hate crime, every woman that made a report of those women, half had experienced threatening behavior. What does that mean? What does threatening behavior mean, though?
A road rage.
Oh, incident? Road rage incident, perhaps. But it could be as simple as a guy like wolf whistling. It could be as simple as a guy
opening the door for a lady, or not opening a door for a lady.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Like, there's no way to actually define this clearly. There's no way. So, like, who cares if women experience threatening behavior? Who cares that they think that that's what happened? How much of that can we know is real? It's impossible to know. So what's the point? Almost half had been groped. So, like, what if you were on a crowded bus and a guy moved past you and, it required his body rub up against yours briefly while he was doing so? Is that a groping? What if you were groped by another woman? Does that count? Is that still a problem, or is that okay? Because I've seen female cosplayers grope other female cosplayers, and they don't seem to complain. It's only a problem when it's people they don't like men. I just don't buy the grope thing, because again, I don't know what that means. And again, also, just because somebody is filing a complaint does not mean that the complaint is valid. A bunch of women could just come out and make complaints just to make it look like it's a problem. And why wouldn't they? If they could, like, criminalize behavior that they don't like. It's like the idea that Nottingham has actually made that a law. This is how scary it can be. A quarter had been followed home. What does that mean? What if you're just walking in the same direction? There are women who would think that they're being followed if they're paranoid enough, especially when you live in a society that tells you that men are all rapists and they're just waiting to get their hands on you. So that means if you happen to believe that, and you're walking home and there's a guy walking in the same direction and he's behind you a distance that you don't think is right, like he's not the correct amount of distance away, you could just feel sketched out, but that doesn't mean that he's actually following you home. And a quarter had been sexually assaulted. Okay, well, of the people who've reported, but, like, how does that compare to the larger, like, population on top of that, right? Let me ask you this, because you're a woman, you have a vagina. Have you ever felt like you had experienced threatening behavior, even when you were younger? Like, have you ever felt like when your younger self could have filed a report on any of this? You ever felt like sketched out?
Yeah.
Yeah, but was it valid?
I think it might have been. There's like this car with these guys that I kept seeing when I was like really young, like, and I was walking home with my sister from school, and every day, like they would be around, One time they blocked the sidewalk and like up ahead, and so I just like went to a store with her because I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you didn't know for sure.
No,
I mean, it's possible, but it was just those guys.
I was just sketched out.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, people feel sketched out all the time. I think that the degree to which you feel sketched out does not, is not equivalent to the actual threat of something happening. Like, I live in Humboldt Park. I grew up here, and this used to be, I mean, like, this neighborhood is still a little bit sketchy sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But it used to be really bad. Like, really bad. Like, people would find bodies in the ponds and shit. Like, that was normal, okay? Nobody went to the park. Like, it was really bad. And I was always sketched out, like, around that time. Sometimes I had to cross the park to go to visit a friend, and I'd go anyway, but I avoided everybody because I didn't know if I was going to run into Latin Kings or what. So, but that doesn't mean that, that I thought that there was a problem with all Puerto Ricans or black people or whatever, because I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just
I hear what you're saying. You're super racist.
Yeah. Your paranoia doesn't necessarily mean that what you're paranoid about is real. That's like a child being afraid of monsters in the dark.
I think it's justified a lot of the time. Like you're being fearful of strangers in the park because you know that there's dead people that pop up in the ponds. That's kind of
that happens. Sure,
that's legitimate.
I think so, but my point is though, like it's dangerous to pass a law that has the potential to criminalize things just because there's like rapists exist in the world. But when you criminalize misogyny, you're basically guaranteeing that you're not going to catch the rapists so much as you're going to,
I don't think that laws can do anything about feeling sketched out, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so let's, I think somebody gave me a super chat. No, that's the one I read from before. Okay. So I just want to, and then the sexually assaulted thing again, I know that's another one that's like, it's hard to define. Like, sure, there might be cases where a sexual assault is the right way to describe it, but it depends on what we mean by these things. And the thing is that I'm finding the more I do these videos, the more I make this kind of content is, feminists are so good at broadening the definition of words and terms that they don't mean anything, so you can like literally say anything is whatever the worst thing is. Like, for example, people are basically describing the Brock Turner incident as a guy who got away with rape. They're just saying that that's what it is now. And we know that that is not true, but all you do is you basically move the goalposts a little bit, you get people to accept that, then you move it a little bit more until you get to the point where you're like, yeah, so basically he got away with rape. And people just accept it. Yeah, I guess he did. Wow. Must be great to be Brock Turner, and this is why I don't buy any of this. So anyway, Dr. Loretta Trickett of Nottingham Trent University tells me this has consequences for girls and young women. I don't think the boys who do it realize the impact of what they do. Sexualized street harassment often involves older men targeting much younger girls. Again, the equivocation often doesn't mean shit. That doesn't tell me it's the majority. That doesn't tell me that doesn't say anything. It's just a woman that's she's trying really hard. She's reaching to basically accuse men of pedophilia. So it's basically trying to make it double plus bad, right? It's not just bad that these men are street harassing girls, but they're doing it to like much younger girls. And again, what does that even mean? How do we know that that's true? How do we know that? Like, how do the men who are flirting, like, we'll go with the stereotype example. Some young women are like walking by a construction site and some guys like, they wolf whistle and they holler. This is the worst example, right? The most straw man version of the truth. How could those men, first of all, if they're just talking, how are they hurting these women? Secondly, how do they know how old these women are? How do they know? Like, how do we know that the age gap is even that much? And do you really think that those girls on some level like hate the attention. Like, I mean, like, really? I don't like, I think that there's a lot of mind reading going on when you talk about this stuff. So, and yeah, I'm sorry, but with the way girls dress these days, it's hard to know like how old they actually are. I saw like this video. I was thinking about doing something like it on either here or my channel because I thought it'd be fun. It was called Can You Guess Her Age? And it had like a picture of a girl and you had to guess her age. And all of them looked like they were like 18, 20 something. And it turned out they were all like really young, like 13, 14, 15, most of the time. And I was like, holy shit, really? Like when I was 13, girls, they didn't know what makeup, they were just like playing with makeup at this point. They didn't need bras yet. Well, what the fuck is going on? You know, it's crazy. Well, yeah, it's totally different now, you know, because of social media and Instagram and everything else. So, but it is hard to tell. But like more important than that, it's not important for Dr. Loretta Trickett to say sexualized street harassment often involves older men targeting much younger girls. That's not important because, first of all, the language, right? Targeted makes it sound like it's some offense thing, like some attack on women. It's targeting is that's language that you should be looking out for. It's men giving attention to women that they find attractive. That's all it is. That's it. Okay. And it's not about predation. It's not about any of these. These people are just like, they are out of control with their language. And again, it makes you wonder, why would you bring this up if you didn't have the ultimate aim of just controlling men, controlling their behavior with the force of the state behind it, right? What would be the point? Are you worried about the alcohol? It's not here yet. It's on the way now. It's en route. Okay.
I'm hearing something like somebody knocking.
Oh yeah, somebody's outside. Go get it. Show me your ID if you have to. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm going to keep reading. If I were to go in search of this dark matter, that thing inside men that makes them treat women as two-dimensional characters in their three-dimensional narratives, I would have to look deep into the hidey hole of the unconscious mind. Wow. That, again, more mind-reading shit. There is a reason that the phrase "tell me about your mother" is shorthand for the sprawling landscape of psychoanalysis. Adam Jukes is a writer and therapist of more than 40 years who, for the half of that time, specialized in treating men who abused women. The author of Why Men Hate Women and What You've Got Is What You Want Even If It Hurts shares a common belief that it is the trauma of childhood and, most crucially, the relationship between a boy and his mother figure that steers the course of male psychology. Well, actually, you might be onto something there. So, are we gonna conclude? So this guy's from the UK. So I don't know what the stats are in the UK, but in the US, a lot of men are raised by single mothers. And that number is growing. And in minority communities, like the Black and Hispanic communities, it's way high. I think in Black communities, 77% of children are born out of wedlock. Now, the stats on like the number of children that are born without fathers at all present is probably less than that, but I don't think it's that much less. So who's actually having an influence on these young male minds? I wonder if that's where he's going to go, because I do think that could have an impact, right? But let's find out. The DCV Titan gives us $5 Canadian and says, sounds a little bit like jealousy, like somebody isn't getting any play and is lashing out at those that can. Someone confirms to me that the UK stats are not far behind. Yeah, I didn't think so, but I was just curious. So, okay. For the vast majority of people all over the world, the mother is a primary carer, Jukes explains. There is an asymmetry in the development of boys and girls. Infant boys have to learn how to be masculine, girls don't. Masculinity is not in a state of crisis. Masculinity is a crisis. I don't believe misogyny is innate, but I believe it's inescapable because of the development of masculinity. So wait a minute.
I don't understand what that means. Masculinity is a crisis. What does that mean?
Masculinity is the problem, I think is what he's saying. So he's basically saying masculinity is not in trouble. Masculinity is trouble. Right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So he explains that the mother is the primary caregiver. He explains that infant boys, in their opinion, infant boys have to learn how to be masculine, but girls don't.
That's strange that he says that because, like what feminists complain about all the time is that, like, you know, like, there's a social construction on the genders, right? Like, so girls learn to be girls.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so maybe this Ukes guy doesn't necessarily believe completely in the feminist social constructivist narrative about how girls are made girls by the way they're taught and boys are made boys by the way they're taught.
Yeah.
But
like,
I go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just thinking of, like, some of the crazier arguments, like the idea that if girls were taught how to like throw better from a younger age or wrestle or do any of those things, they would develop, like, basically as strong as boys.
Yeah.
Have you seen those arguments?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Sure. No, it doesn't seem like he's going there. That might change, and we're also looking at the opinions of another person, Jukes, through the lens of the author Chesterton. So he might change what he thinks Jukes is saying to suit what he believes. You know what I'm saying? So that could happen. But okay, so I want to touch on this really quick. So he says there's an asymmetry in the development of boys and girls. Infant boys have to learn how to be masculine, girls don't. So this guy does, to some degree, think, it seems, that boys have to learn to be masculine, which implies that they're blank slate. So he does kind of have the idea of blank slate. And girls don't have to learn to be masculine. So therefore, if girls don't have to learn to be masculine, girls are not a problem. Because masculinity is the problem. That must be what he's getting at. He says, yeah. So I don't believe misogyny is innate, so he doesn't think that, you know, it can't be deprogrammed.
But it's inescapable.
But it's inescapable because of masculinity. Okay.
I'm really not following this.
He's just saying that we need to socialize boys to be less masculine so that they're less dangerous.
Who's teaching them to be masculine?
Well, that's the thing he leaves out. That's my point. Most men, like a large number of men, are raised by single mothers. So who's teaching them this? Really? Not only are they raised by single mothers, but they immediately, most of the time, go into daycare, which is operated by women. Then they go right into public education, which is dominated by women. Then they go right into college, which is dominated by women. And then you wonder, well, what's wrong with masculinity? Why are they like they're just getting bad ideas from bad male role models? No, there are no male role models. It's all women. So of course they're gonna like. And you're trying to feminize something that is you don't know anything about. It's more people that don't understand masculinity at all trying to talk about masculinity. Right? Okay, so here's the this is a fucking what's with this artsy ass chart? I don't even know what it means.
Okay, let me look at it for a second. So we got age groups and percentage who said yes to what?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Maybe they were asked, is masculinity in crisis? And so people between the ages of 16 and 24 said, yes, 35%.
What is with this weird ass chart?
It's modern art.
Why would you do it that way?
Because the guy who put it together is an Italian named Valerio Pellegrini, and he couldn't just make a fucking chart.
Oh, okay.
He had to make art. He had to make a chart. All right, well, let's move on. Maybe they'll explain it.
The author is in crisis.
In its basic form, the theory is that boys individuate and develop a sense of self. Okay? As they do that, they have to separate from their mothers when they realize that they are not like them, and they cannot, in Freudian terms, possess them. This repression marks the end of the Oedipus complex. In their anxiety, the boys then identify with the father, and it's here that they learn about what it means to be masculine.
What if there is no father?
What if there is no father? Maybe that's the problem. The cliches of masculinity, being strong, fearless, and competitive, above all, not being like the mother, permeate boys' lives. Yeah, because mothers, women, they never have the idea that they're strong, fearless, or competitive themselves, right? That's not a thing that women do ever, for one. And yeah, you got all that wrong, dude. Men don't want to be strong because they like being strong. Men like being strong because they like, and this is the truth, honest truth. Men like to be able to know that they can do things in service of people that are weaker than they are. So they want to be strong because they want to help people. And being stronger is a way to do it. Same thing with fearless. Like, what would be the advantage of being fearless if not to essentially, like, you know, step in for on behalf of people who can't do it, like weaker than you, like your children or your wife or your friends, you know, or your grandparents, whatever the fuck it is. Okay, so I'm just so sick of this fucking toxic masculinity narrative. It's like the thing that really bugs me more than anything else. At this point, quote, a part of the male ego is identified with a penis, says Jukes. And the whole body can be identified with a penis. And that's when you get masculinity.
What?
Nigga, you gay. That doesn't have anything to do with masculinity. Guys don't check in with the fucking control room in their crotch before they do things. Holy shit. If true, it's like this weird assumption that men are just meat-headed jocks, like, all the time. Like, what about artists and intellectuals and scientists and like men do all kinds of shit. They engineer, they build, they made the internet that you're on right now. What
about head chefs?
Yeah.
But that's too much like their mom or something. They don't want to be like their mom.
It's just, I mean, what the fuck? All right, and I only said that he was gay because I think he's obsessed with penises. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you know, if that's what your deal is. But
whole body can be identified with a penis.
Don't project that shit on other.
And that's when you get masculinity.
Yeah. Somebody wants a masculinity. What? George Chesterton.
What the fuck?
If true, it will lend a certain piquancy? Let me just see what this is. Piquancy, a pleasantly sharp and appetizing flavor. God damn it, dude. I got a thesaurus and I want to use this word. This is a good place for me to use it. If true, it will lend a certain piquancy the next time you hear a woman. Piquancy, yeah. It's got a schwa in it, so yeah. The next time you hear a woman tell a man to stop being a massive dick.
So it's a what kind of taste?
It's like a sharpness, like a sting.
Cheese?
Like sting. Yeah, like a sharp cheese, like a sharp cheddar. Analysis.
It smells like cheese.
That in your case, you're talking about something that's more like a Gouda.
You don't know
Limburger.
Your cheeses. Stop.
Limburger. That's the stinky cheese.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is. I've never had it because I think it stinks too much.
Gouda's not stinky, I don't think.
I don't know what Gouda smells like.
Parmesan.
Oh man, stinky. Parmesan smells awful, but it tastes really good. It's so weird. I love Parmesan on shit, but I don't want to smell it. Okay. Analysis is a broad church full of schism and nonconformism, and Freud's feminist critics have picked apart his theories, not least his ambivalence to or disregard for the female condition. However, 100 years later, even his detractors concede the role of the unconscious and the problematic nature of boys' relationships with their mothers. You know, again, first of all, haven't people like basically said that like Freud is kind of a hack? Like I thought that was, I've heard a lot. Let me put it this way. I'm not a psychologist and I haven't really looked into it too closely, but I've heard a lot of criticisms of Freud's shit. Like that he's not really as great as everyone says, and that Jung is a better example, or like his work is better, but I don't know. I'm just asking, guys. Do you think that Freud is kind of overused? Do you think that he's overrated? Yeah. I heard a lot of criticisms of Freud. Really? Yeah. Why?
Well, no, I've told you before. Like, I like the what's it called? I can never pronounce it properly.
Adlerian psychology. Yeah, Adler.
I like it better, and he criticizes Freud a lot.
Yeah, Adlerian's better. Okay. So let me see here. Quote, the internalization. Yeah, the internalization of misogyny is not restricted to boys. It comes out as being raised by mothers, celebrated author and psychologist Susie Orbach tells me, because the mother is the person we are most dependent on. The rage and fear at being cut off from her, or the terror of mother's disapproval, or like her beatings, leads us to it. Girls grow up to be moms, so they internalize misogyny. Wait, what?
What?
Girls that grow up and become parents themselves are internalizing misogyny. Girls need to deprogram from having babies? Is that what you're saying?
This is making less and less
sense.
I
think what she's trying to say, honestly, is that girls who want to be housewives, like their mothers were.
No one said anything about housewives.
I know, but
she said motherhood.
Yeah, but there's this is what they do, babe. They conflate words. They just conflate housewife and mother. Like, that's the same.
The reproduction of our species is based on internalized misogyny.
Yeah, assumptions that women should be the ones making babies.
Don't you do it.
Mothers. Oh my god. Okay, so this is so nuts, man. What is wrong with people in psychology? I put in quotes. Okay. Because the mother is the person that we are most dependent on, the rage and fear at being cut off from her, or the terror of mother's disapproval, leads us to repress it. Girls grow up to be mums, so they internalize misogyny. But boys don't grow up to be mums, so they feel thwarted, and their power comes from feeling they can thwart back. For a boy, it's so confusing. I don't understand that. Why? At what point does a boy get mad because he's not a girl? Because his mother is female, and then feels the need to get revenge on her. Where did you get your degree? What do you like? Do you actually talk to people in your job? Where the fuck did you get these ideas?
I don't think it's just confusing for boys. I don't understand this at all. What is
this? This person. This is like, I think this person. Paul Grofton gives us $2 and doesn't say anything. Thanks, Paul. But I would like to hear what your thoughts are, or what your comment's going to be. Yeah, I'm really confused by this. It's like, this person seems, I have a feeling that they're working from a foregone conclusion. So they basically come up with their thesis. You know, boys are misogynistic and girls internalize their misogyny by going along with boys' misogyny. And now I just need to figure out how that is the case. Oh, I get it. Boys are not like their mothers, and it makes them mad because they want to be like their mothers, despite the fact that being like your mother is misogynistic. But boys are still misogynistic because they're thwarting their mothers. Yeah, that's the logic.
I didn't follow.
It's okay.
I don't know if I'm like purposely just like not letting this go into my brain.
You probably don't want to. It's like burrowing a hole that I don't think can be replaced.
I really do want to understand, though. I do.
No, I get that you do. I'm trying, but I don't understand either. It's just a bunch of gobbledygook. The male child feels that to be dependent on a woman is dangerous, and this makes him feel vulnerable, which, without wishing to sound like Yoda, leads to fear, which leads to sadism. No, the dark side, that's different. That anxiety is repressed and is expressed via the unconscious as misogyny. I like how this guy just throws in a Yoda quote like that makes him smart. That's stupid, dude. I mean, this whole thing is stupid. I guess you may as well throw in a Yoda quote. I mean, that makes more sense than some of the other shit that we've heard, but... Okay, so... being a child makes a boy feel vulnerable, and that leads them to fear, which leads them to sadism. So girls don't feel vulnerable when they're children? And if they do they not then also feel fear? I would argue that girls tend to feel fear more often than boys do. and vulnerable more often. Actually, for a longer period of time.
I don't know.
Why?
I think girls and boys are pretty similar when they're young, as far as like risk aversion and anxiety and stuff like that. I think once they
I don't know. Boys are pretty like, well, I think they're both kind of like testing their boundaries.
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't get like risk averse until I was older, like a teenager.
Yeah, I don't know. It's there is a lot of assumptions about boys and girls behavior in this that's actually, this is the reason why it's hard to understand, because it's working from things that, it's like literally pulling shit that isn't reality and basically telling you that it is, you know? It's like starting a study about cows by saying that they fly and they're blue. The blue flying cow variety has this kind of milk. You're like, what? What?
It's like you lost me at the first sentence. Like...
Okay, so I want to read some super chats. Tyler Preston gives us $2 and says, "You're sure that you're not reading an Onion article?" No, this is the GQ. This is the GQ, and they're supposed to be smart. This is the UK version. Not that the US version's any better. They're supposed
to be smart? I don't think
They're supposed to be... Look, this is an article on male psychology. This is supposed to be somewhat intellectual. Cyberzerk gives us 50 kronas and says, "A sword that loses its temper is dull. A man that loses its temper is useless." Samurai saying, "Yeah, traditional masculinity sounds terrible." Yeah, it's almost like that's the point. Yeah. I know that the GQ is a radical feminist rag. I know that. That's why I never tell anyone to read GQ, even though it tells you that it's for you. But that's the point, right? It's trying to get you to read their tripe. But they're not stupid. They're very manipulative. Okay. We're still, Orbach and Jukes agree that the more disruptive and traumatic childhood is, the more likely it is that future behavior will become extreme. That makes sense, yes. Again, I have to go back to single mothers. Single mothers create a very disruptive and traumatic childhood for boys and girls, which leads to extremely destructive behavior for both of them in different ways. If you are brought up in a household that's very fractious, then what you'll seek in a future relationship is one where people are in a rage all the time, because that's what love means to you, says Orbach. Again, I don't disagree with this. I just think that they probably wouldn't like where it's most of the time coming from. Mm-hmm. Okay. Your internal experience of an intimate relationship is one that evokes your primary love relationship, which is the one with your mother. You know, then now that he's saying that, I just had this thought. So in domestic violence situations, the people who like experience the most domestic violence are lesbians in lesbian relationships. So are lesbians like sort of essentially like, is that an expression of their relationship with their mother? Going by the GQ logic here, I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was true. I think that people who get into dysfunctional relationships are doing that because to them, they don't know what healthy relationships look like. And a lot of that has to do with their relationships at home. And a lot of that has to do with how often they were beaten, if they were beaten, whether or not they had both of their parents, and like how available those parents were to him. Even going as far back as like how much body contact they had with their mother and father when they were born. And I wouldn't be surprised, although this is research that people would probably find to be politically incorrect to look at, if lesbians experience the most trauma, except maybe outside of like, you know, I don't know, like extreme cases of transgenderism, for example. You know, I'm just putting it out there. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm just gonna leave that on the table, and we're gonna move on. In early childhood, we lay down our default settings, says Jukes. We are programmed to remember pain. That's why the species survives. We have a need to return to the default settings because that is where we feel secure, in our stress and pain. We think we want something different, but what we do is set up dramas that ensure we end up back at the default. That's not to say educated and privileged men are less likely to be misogynists. This is classless, international, and transhistorical. Depends on what you mean by misogyny.
Transhistorical.
Yeah, that means it transcends time. Like, it's basically like always been and always will, I think, to some degree.
Yeah.
So basically what he's saying is it's hopeless, but they're also going to tell us how we can change it. So, yeah. Okay. Even in a nurturing family, a child will grow up with chauvinism, says Jukes. Culture and society are the seedbed where the child's misogyny takes root. The construction of the woman as the carer is all around us. So it's a construct, of course.
It is not a construct.
No. It is the way it is. And that is part of what informs men's rage with women. Huh? The construct of the woman as the carer is all around us, and that is part of what informs men's rage with women? In my millennial patients, I don't see any difference to patients I was seeing decades ago.
Maybe it means that, like, men that see women that aren't caring for them are, like, it breeds hatred in them or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sense of that.
So you're saying that because we see women as caregivers, it makes men angry?
That they're not getting care.
That they're not getting care?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that, but I don't think that's what this person is saying. Because if that was the case, then they'd be saying that men need care and women aren't giving it. And we all know that we can't say that. That's not cool. Right? This is crazy.
Wait, can I just read it again?
Yeah.
Sorry. The construction of the woman as the carer is all around us, and that is part of what informs men's rage with women. That doesn't make any sense.
I think this is all like gobbledygook.
Okay.
Honestly, this is bullshit. Like we're
trying to analyze
it's completely baseless. Like it's like Michael Eric Dyson talk. It's just like filling the air with words so they sound smart. But there's like, I'm like, what's the thesis, nigga? You know? All right. Masculinity then appears on a sliding scale, usually depending on a boy's childhood environment and trauma. All children experience negativity. Okay. With indifference or neglect at one end, and physical or sexual abuse at the other. And the more painful childhood is, the more likely a boy is to emerge as hyper-masculine. Okay, so there are a few assumptions here. First off, they say that all children experience negativity. Sure, everybody experiences negativity.
I don't think that's a spectrum, though. Like, what the hell?
No, it's
neglect or sexual assault on the other end. That's
like
not...
neglect on one end and sexual assault on the other end. Yeah.
Couldn't you get neglected and sexually assaulted?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying yes. I was gonna say
Why
that.
Is that a spectrum? That's
and if you're
stupid.
Well, the thing is that like it's almost like he's saying that there's no optimal best case scenario for raising a child. Like where they might be a few incidents of indifference, but maybe this is what they need. Like if they get punished or there's something like they're being taught a lesson, a life lesson that they might not be happy with in the moment, but it will benefit them in the future. You can't call that something that is going to contribute to hyper masculinity, and then you just say the word hyper masculinity like it means something, because it doesn't mean anything to just say that. They're just making up new words. There's another thing that these people do. Well, guys,
the thing is they never really define what masculinity is. Like, is it stoicism?
It's all the bad things, babe.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, competitiveness, being strong. They said it earlier. They said being competitive, being strong, trying to dominate, control people, use force to get your way. It's like shit like that. Treat women like objects. That's what they think masculinity is. That's just how they see it. So, okay, so this all children experience negativity thing, you're starting from a very bad premise, because a child that grows up in a healthy environment will in fact experience negativity, and they will still, if they're boys, turn out masculine without being an asshole, because guess what? There's a difference between being an asshole and being masculine, but the way these guys operate, they're the same thing. And this is the reason why the toxic masculinity narrative is so insidious, because they make it sound like it's something that's exclusive to certain people that act a certain way, which gives most men a way out, because most men, they don't want to be seen as toxic, so they just say, well, that's not me, I'm one of the good ones, and then they just leave it alone. And if another man like me complains about the narrative in the first place because I don't like the wording, and I know that there's something much darker going on when they talk about it, those same men will come after me and they'll say, why is it bothering you, bro? Are you one of those guys? And it's like, no, motherfucker. Like, you think that just this is the problem with men, because they're, in a way, it's a problem with men because they're it's like the strength of men is that they're individualistic, but on the other side of it, because of that individualism, they don't have like they tend to not have the same kind of group identity with men in general, so they don't stick up for other men because they're like, well, it's, you know, like, unless they're like friends, or if you like really work on them to like get them to think about it. So okay, anyway, meanwhile, the more masculine a boy is, the more he represses his feelings about women. That's not true, but whatever. So the more misogynistic and abusive he is likely to be. Again, that's not true. You don't understand what masculinity is. You think that basically men that are raised by women and the way that they behave, which is emotional, not emotionless, because being a robot is not the same as being stoic, you know. Those things are not things that other men who are healthy men teach to men. That's not the way that works. This also works in reverse, with hypermasculine men also more likely to be emotionally vulnerable, even helpless. Okay? I can't tell you the number of men I've worked with who have been violent or nasty who end up crying, begging for forgiveness, says Jukes. This is terribly complex, turning the perpetrator into the victim. But the dependency is at the root of masculinity, and of course, dependency cuts into the heart of masculinity. It subverts it. Wow, this person sounds like they abuse their patients. So, I'm serious.
Well, it's so fucked up anyway, because, like, I think that, like, that's not really a gendered thing. I mean, like, lots of women do the whole Darvo attack, too, like, where you reverse the victim.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't think that's even, like, a very masculine
You ever heard of
thing
Anita
to do.
Sarkeesian? I mean... No, it's, and then, well, that's the thing, like, you bring, like, imagine being a guy who is, you know, looking for help with something, and then you find a way to make him the victim, or not the victim, but you make him apologize, and then you pat yourself on the back because you subverted their masculinity by making them dependent. It's like, it's fucking abusive. What the fuck? All right. Oh, shit. The cultish nature of incels is not an aberration.
I just want to say that's like a confession, right? Trying to get a confession out of something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like an interrogation.
It's like a religious thing, right? An ideological thing.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. And then you do that, and then you go and write about it like you've won something. You've basically made a man crack. And like most of the time, men who are abusive are themselves the victim of abuse. So like, we need to have, like, at some point, there's got to be some compassion given to men, too. You know? It's crazy. All right. Incels. The online subculture of self-loathing, involuntary celibates who define themselves through their ability to find love... their inability, to find love or a sexual partner, fit this misogynistic pattern very neatly. So guys who can't get laid... that are really sad, they're lonely as fuck, they desire human contact. Yeah, they hate women too. They get angry at women, sure, but I don't think they hate women. Obviously they don't hate women, they love women, and that's why they're angry, because they're denied contact with that which they love so much. I hate that they call these guys that. And, you know, it's like kicking people while they're down. Like this, I'm sorry, but incels probably feel like they're at the bottom of society. They probably think of themselves as the scum of the earth. And it's also, it has this like bucket of crabs effect too, where other incels are trying to like do better for themselves, and the other incels drag them down because they don't want, misery loves company, and they don't want to be alone with their misery. And I mean, not all the time, but I know that it happens because it's different from MGTOW, which are guys that are just like, I don't want anything to do with it. And then you go and attack these guys. Like, they already have it bad, man. They what they need is community. They need a sense of self. They need they need to wash their dick, basically. clean their room. Is it wash your dick? Is that the Peterson meme?
I don't know.
It's wash your dick. Anyway.
Is it something like that?
It's like that. Clean.
It makes me angry. You're making me angry.
Clean the gooch.
Wash your chode.
I'm not making fun of incel. I just like that line. Okay, so yeah, paradoxically, these self-proclaimed losers also exhibit a kind of hypermasculinity. I doubt it. I think that they don't know. They were most of the time incels were denied a father. I would bet you. Or they had an abusive stepfather, they had an overbearing mother, failure to launch, they have disabilities, they have mental problems. They have a whole lot of shit that's basically putting them in the, let's say, out of the gene race, just completely. And they're really not happy about it. And why should they be happy about it? What they need is a healthy outlet. But this shit here, where you essentially just criticize these people, is not helping. The cultish nature of incels is not an aberration, but an extension of male psychological development, a need to control mixed with a sense of humiliation. It's always someone else's fault. In the case of incels, it begins with a belief that genetics has dealt them a bad hand. Damn you, Mother Nature.
What do we call controlling women?
What do we call it? Feminism.
No, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, okay, masculinity is the problem. Masculinity is about control. Then what is a controlling woman? Woman.
What is controlling women?
No, like a woman that wants to control her mate or
her
children or whatever. Is that not toxic?
No, it's not. Not with their logic. It's just being a woman. It's just wanting the best for your kids. It's being a mother. It's being a wife. You can't call them nags because that's a misogynist.
Not even talking about nags. Like,
no,
you know that
but just
story that you covered on Tuesday.
Oh yeah, where the girl denied the guy food and stabbed him and tried to cut his wrist and that abuse, right?
Yeah. And it started just like wanting to control his friends, his family, his Facebook account.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you thinking about? That's more controlling than I've heard a lot of men.
I mean, I'm sure that it's something that men are capable of doing, but
I'm sure there's fucked up men out there that would control their mate like that. But
I don't think that's the normal way that men operate, though.
But I think like I guess all I'm saying is that I think I've seen it as often in women as I have in men. Just personal experience with that.
Oh, I know. I've seen it myself. My brother, he's a victim of a really controlling woman, manipulative, in the extreme, and a fucking moron, but also a psychopath. But anyway, that's a story for another day. I've definitely seen it. Okay, so it's always someone else's fault. Blah blah blah. It's true that it's funny too that they say that incels are like. They're pathetic because they're always blaming other people for their problems and they're not taking responsibility. It's funny because while I do agree that incels would be much happier if they took charge of their lives, and I think it's something they could benefit from learning, and if not because it would attract them a mate, but just for its own sake, they should be doing it for themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can do that well enough and you never meet another woman, fuck it. You can still have a happy life, right? But it's funny because that's exactly what leftists and feminists do, is they blame everyone else for their problems, they always play the victim, and they don't want to fix anything. It's funny because that's exactly what they do. I think they hate incels because they're a lot like them. But they're a lot like the worst aspects of them, and they don't have any sympathy for those aspects. Because if they looked too close and they started to express compassion, they might find that they have a lot more in common with them than they think. All right, so the rage and righteousness. The rage and righteousness against women represent one felt injustice after another, says Jukes. Incels' basic premise of "she won't let me fuck her" is about as straightforward and audible statement as you can make. Yeah, but you confuse the "she won't let me fuck her" with the subtext of that, which is I want to be close to a woman that wants me or wants to be close to me. It's not just I want to get my rocks off. It's just men are not that simple, dude. I think Roosh V even confirmed this for me. I saw him in he was on a interview with Jesse Lee Peterson. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And he said, Roosh V said this, okay? And I don't agree with him on a lot of things because we can talk about PUAs another time. But he said that, I used to think that a man's thing was to spread his seed to as many women as possible, but then he finds that, despite all the women he's been with, which I don't know if that's true or not, but what he says is that men are more inclined to remember fondly only a few women, and they tend to not see them as disposable, but rather as someone they want to pair bond with. And I think that's absolutely true. I think that we are pair bonders. Men have the capacity to impregnate multiple women. But if you were to ask them their preference, even a guy who says that he wants to get all the pussy in the world, they would ultimately, even if they had all of that, they would not find it to be satisfying, and they would actually rather just have one person that they want to be close to. Even a PUA admits that, okay? Even that. So this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. How are these people experts? How are these people talking about men, incels, women, masculinity, femininity, motherhood? I mean, how do they get that job? They don't know what they're talking about. And I'm not an expert, but I know that that's not at all the real world. All right, I'm gonna read one more paragraph, and then we're gonna go and look at the super chats, and then we're gonna go into the after show. Okay, we got almost to the end of the article though, so not bad. Men are not. Huh?
Can I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Men are not victims, and incels represent the worst in men. How they refuse to accept their own responsibilities and their reluctance to know themselves or admit what lives in their unconsciousness.
Yeah.
The root of this is shame and frustration, which analysts believe comes from a childhood spent feeling impotent in the shadow of the father, castration anxiety, and separation from the mother. Masculinity, therefore, is a defense mechanism.
Bullshit to all of that. Bullshit. All right. So men are not victims. Men can be victimized, I guess. The incels represent the worst in men. How they refuse to accept their own responsibilities and their reluctance to know themselves or admit what lives in their unconscious. Well, this is manipulation to the extreme. Again, another person that if they were to sit down with an incel and talk to them, they would make the incels believe that everything that's terrible about their life is their fault and their father's fault. And their fault because they're men, not because there's some things that they could take ownership of, right? The root of this is shame and frustration, which analysts believes come from a childhood spent feeling impotent in the shadow of the father and separated from the mother. Bullshit, man. Again, how many incels do you think don't even know their father or don't see their father? And how many of them are around their mother all the time? This is the incels are more likely a product of helicopter parenting by single mothers than they are castration anxiety because their father is always, I guess, doing shit and making them feel useless. That's bullshit. And then masculinity is a defense mechanism. Holy shit. Whew, man. This, how is this in a men's magazine? I know this is a feminist magazine, but this is really bad. Masculinity is a defense mechanism. This guy does not understand masculinity whatsoever. All right, let's see your super chats. So Paul Grofton gives us $5 and says, check out my petition on changefullstop.org. I guess changefullstop.org on Isabel O'Shaughnessy. Okay, guys, go check that out after the stream. It's changefullstop.org on Isabel O'Shaughnessy. I don't know what that's about, so maybe I shouldn't be recommending it. But just take a look, I guess, and see what it is. It's
gonna be a bunch of blue waffles.
Yeah, it's just Hokey Bakisa gives us $4.99 and says, this guy is suggesting genetic, physical, and psychological differences. Eco-psych. I'm surprised he isn't being crucified by progressives. He is in a way, but as long as he comes to the correct conclusions, they'll let him live for a little while until at which time they can convert him completely to the gender is a social construct narrative that they all love so much. Hokie then gives us $10 and says, incels represent the inverse entitlement for sex that gynocentric women feel towards being provisioned and protected without being worthy of it. This scares them subconsciously, I think.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah.
What about women that want to be in a marriage or something like that can't find a man and like are older now? Like, what are they, kind of like female incels?
Well,
and are they victims?
I don't know. Like, I guess it depends. Like, in order to be an incel, I would guess that the qualifying term would be a virgin. But could you be an incel if it's just been like a long time?
Well, no, I guess what I'm trying to think of, it's like for men, maybe an incel is somebody who can't get with a woman at all, but maybe for women it's something like getting a man to commit or something long
Yeah.
time.
It's a woman who can't get a man to commit. That would probably be like similar, because a woman can get laid, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But getting a man to commit could be different, especially if they're like shooting higher than outside of their,
exactly. That's mostly the problem.
Yeah, that
right?
is mostly the problem. It's women like shooting, outside of their, range, I guess you could say, playing outside of their league, and they find a man that they think, he's definitely in the appropriate league, and they think he's going to commit, but he just wants to like pump and dump because he has more options.
Right.
Or he's the kind of guy who recognizes, the potential for a toxic relationship, which is, I think, one of the reasons why men should have control over commitment, because they should be able to recognize when a woman might not be good for him long term and, pull the plug on that. So, all right. But yeah, I think that would be the equivalent of a female incel. I mean, you'd have to look like the fucking final boss from Resident Evil as a woman to not get laid. And even then, I'm sure there's like some guy who'll, still fuck you. So,
some people are into that.
Yeah, some people are into that. The DCV Titan gives us $5 Canadian and says, some guys have such a desperate need for a positive female connection that they are willing to be anthropomorphized fucking toasters, robotic sex dolls. Yeah, and the thing is too, is that doesn't even make them happy, because they want connection with somebody. It's about connection. It's like 40-year-old virgin. That's what they want. It's not just sex, because if it was just sex, they would just like go to porn sites and that would be fine.
Or get a prostitute.
Or order a prostitute. And that's some incels do, but they still find themselves unhappy because what they want is a woman to want them voluntarily. And not necessarily just for the sex. I think that what men like that really want are the other things, like the relationship benefits, the girlfriend experience. Yeah. They want to hold hands with a girl. They want to go to the beach. They want to sit around and like eat pizza and watch Netflix.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about this, isn't that like what MGTOW was talking about for a while? The male mother need?
Yeah.
Isn't that what this GQ article is kind of mentioning with the Freudian shit?
In a way. But I mean, they're clearly like putting men in some kind of aggressor category, whereas the MGTOW philosophy around it is more like blaming men for allowing themselves to have those thirst urges. So I think the MGTOW one is closer to the mark, although I'd be a little bit less finger waggy. I would try to like understand where an incel is, because at the end of the day, they are individuals. But I think that they want a connection, something deeper. They don't just want to have sex. They just think that they want it, because I think the majority of incels are virgins. And a lot of them are probably really young, too. They probably have the idea, they might be like 16, 17, and they have the idea that they should have gotten laid by that time.
Yeah.
And they're just sort of getting frustrated, and
I felt like that too, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like that, actually. But I was saving myself. I was saving myself until I met the right girl, and I was doing it all like, I had like this whole thing planned out, and there were girls that were trying to fuck me, and I pushed them away, like in ways that most guys were like, why did you do that? And I was like, nah, she wasn't right. But yeah, I look back on that and I was like, fuck, I probably should have had sex. So anyway, so where was I on this? The DCV Titan gives us $5 Canadian, says some guys have such a desperate need for positive female connection they are willing to anthropomorphize fucking toasters. Yeah, I already read that one. And then Tyler Preston gives us $2 and says Christy Winters, quote, this GQ article makes sense. Well, she is a doctor after all. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go. It's 6:11. We're going to go into the after show and do the rest of the article. If you guys want to be a part of it, I hope you guys had fun as I was going through the GQ article. Yes, it's cringy as fuck. It's just more, I guess, further evidence that shows us that obviously the mainstream narrative is the feminist narrative. It's the way that we think of men. And this is just like, you know, I guess maybe I'm just getting black pilled, but it's to the point now when I see these narratives of toxic masculinity, of male privilege, it's just, it doesn't bother me anymore because, I mean, it still does, but I'm not surprised. You know, it's just like, well, you know, we're just going to be doing this again. So, but that doesn't mean that we can't continue to look at what's being said, try to, you know, work it out, get past all the fucking, you know, academic gobbledygook and see what they're really trying to get at, what the meat is. And most of the time you find out that, you know, it's just a bologna sandwich with a bunch of extra toppings, but nothing special.
I think part of the problem and why it's so like hard to understand is that if they just came out and communicated directly and clearly, we would like they would reveal how full of hate they are. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Yeah. It's the same thing with like, you know, like I said, that's why I called it a Michael Eric Dyson argument, because if he came out and said what he really meant and just put it out there, he would just say white people are evil and I hate them. Yeah. And you need to give us stuff. And that would like that would be naked, but that's what it is. And so that's how it's that's how they roll. So okay. So I wanted to tell you guys about a website, but I can't display it right now. I'm asking it to get repaired. But you know, we're often asked, why don't MRAs do anything? Like, what have they actually done? And someone has put together a website that compiles everything that MRAs have accomplished all over. And unfortunately, they got to like get it put back up because it's down right now. But I did see it a few days ago, and then I tried to bring it back up, and it was just like dead. So I messaged the guy to find out if he can like get it repaired. When it does, I will put it in. I'll make a video. Maybe I'll show it to you guys on the news show or next Friday. Hopefully it's fixed by then. And this way you guys can go there and see, you know, if people ask you what have MRAs done, you can show them. I think it's been a lot, man. You know, between like what Cafe has done and NCFM and you know, the Lighthouse Project, you know, they've done a lot of good, and that's not all. Lots of other groups have too. So, okay, so we're gonna go into the after show. If you want to be a part of that, you got to become a badger. To do that, you go to feedthebadger.com, start a monthly subscription. Don't do Patreon. We are still on Patreon, but fuck them and just go to Feed the Badger. You'll be welcome there. It'd be really great to have you guys. We have lots of great people in our Discord, and people are always doing fun stuff on there. So, you know, be a part of the action. So that's feedthebadger.com. And I want to thank you guys for coming on this episode of the Rantzerker. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Leave us a comment telling us what you think. Also, give this video a like and subscribe to Badger Live Streams for more content. I am looking into doing some pretty fun and exciting stuff in the future, so I hope to see you guys there. Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you guys really soon. Do you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Peace out.